Welcome to another edition of the Coach Daboll Show presented by Stop & Shop. I'm Bob Papa. Sunday Night Football doesn't get any better. An NFC East matchup, the Giants and the Washington Commanders. We got a big show lined up for you. Carl Banks will go to the coach's tape with strategy and break it down for you. We'll have sights and sounds from the last meeting against Washington. Plus, we'll turn back the clock and take you back to 1986 and relive those three memorable meetings between the Giants and Washington in which Big Blue swept Washington and won Super Bowl 21. It is with great pleasure that I welcome in my co-host, two-time Super Bowl champion, Carl Banks, a member of that team, and the head coach of the New York Giants, Brian Daboll. Coach, obviously, Sunday's game against Philadelphia did not go the way you wanted. They got off to a fast start. You didn't. What were some of the takeaways from the game for you and the staff?
Yeah, no, exactly that. We definitely didn't want to play it like that. You know, you give that team a head start like that, and they're a tough team to play against, even when it's even. So, credit them. They did a really good job, and, we just fell short in a lot of areas.
And, Coach, there are some times where you look at it and you say, boy, we could have created an opportunity for ourselves if one or two things are different. Maybe on the fourth down, you break the pass up instead of intercepting, or intercept it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
no doubt.
Neither one happened, and that was a break that you could have created for yourself, right?
Yeah, I'd say there was a few of those when you go back and you watch the tape. You know, we were behind the defense, a few times there where we had some opportunities and just didn't have enough time to get the ball out. And, that played on 4th and 7, Devontae makes a great play on it, and we come up a little bit short on it and just gives them a little bit more momentum. And, again, we got down, we didn't want to get down. We got down and just never could recover.
All right, so now you got to fast forward, short memory. You got Washington for the second time in 3 weeks. What did you learn from studying Washington going into this game, meeting them for a second time about them?
Yeah, well, they're a really good team. They've won a lot of games here the second half of the season. They got up on us early. They have their line was what we thought. They're a really good defensive line. They run the ball. The runners are tough runners, and McLaurin is a heck of a receiver who had over 100 yards against us. So tough, hard-fought battle. A lot of good players, good coaching staff. It'll be a big-time challenge at their place on Sunday night.
Coach, you call it a challenge, but it's a wonderful opportunity for this team because it's December and you're playing for a shot at the playoffs. Now, that message can be direct because that's what this is about on Sunday.
Yeah, and again, for our guys who, some have come from other places that have won some games. Some of the core guys we have right now haven't won a lot of games. So, again, just trying to keep the main thing and trying to go 1-0 against a really good team and focus on the things that we can control. And, if we do that, then we give ourselves a chance.
Washington likes to play to a certain profile, right? They want to use those two running backs, and then you talked about the talent that they have. Do you expect a lot of wrinkles from them? Because they had a bye last week, so they had time to really kind of sit back while you were playing.
Sure. No, you never know when teams coming out of bye. They'll be fresh. They've had some time off, and, they'll get to us early. They haven't had an opponent, so certainly be a big challenge.
And, Coach, when teams have that bye week, or you say, okay, they've had some time off to refine their game plan, the players are still the players, right?
That's right.
And there you do your work on the individual player and what their capabilities are, and that's the way you have to kind of go into a game, right?
No doubt. You know how this league is.
Yeah.
It's a game full of matchups, and they'll probably be getting some players back after their bye, and maybe a couple new players that we didn't play against the first game. So we'll have to be on our P's and Q's with what they do well and make sure that we counter that.
Coach, for everybody who's on the outside, because you're either on the inside or you're on the outside, and then you have the fans that are further on the outside. How do you manage the mindset of the team? Because, fans are freaking out right now. The Giants haven't won in a while.
Yeah.
Media is freaking out. How do you keep the steadiness?
Well, that goes back to how you approach really a practice and OTAs all the way through. You try to be consistent. You try to be a good leader for the coaches, for the players. You try to have your coaches be good leaders. And player-driven leadership, I think, is probably the most important. So everybody holds each other accountable. And, don't get too high when you're winning and don't get too low when you're losing. And it takes a lot of mental toughness in the world we live in today to make sure that you're focusing on the main thing, which is improvement.
Coach, best of luck on Sunday night.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
That's the head coach of the New York Giants, Brian Daboll. We're just getting started on the program. When we come back, the sights and sounds of the Giants meeting against Washington 2 weeks ago here on the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop and Shop. Welcome back to the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop and Shop. Sunday Night Football, it's the Giants in Washington. We're going to rewind it 2 weeks and take a look at the sights and sounds of the Giants' 2020 tie with Washington.
All right, here we go, boys. Here we go. Hey, 60-minute fight. All right, take it to the 60 minutes. Everything you got. Giants on 3. 1, 2, 3.
New York Giants football is on the air from high atop MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. The New York Football Giants take on the Washington Commanders. And this is a very important game for them because it's a home game against a division opponent and a team that they will most likely be battling for one of those playoff spots. Jones over center, Barkley the tailback. Play fake, Jones back to throw. Sets and throws a deep rainbow ball down the field for Slayton, who makes the catch in traffic and gets tackled at the 26-yard line. Jones threw it up and Slayton makes another big play.
Great play for this offense by this young man.
1st and 10 at the 13. Hodgins comes set right, handoff Barkley, dashes up the middle to the 5 and in for the touchdown. Barkley's 8th rushing touchdown of the season from 13 yards out. And with 8:49 to go, MetLife Stadium erupts.
That's how we play. That's the way you play.
Great speed, great fight, one cut. That's the way to get it downhill. Good job, guys. That's the way to battle right there. Great job.
This is a 3rd and 8 from their own 25. Gibson to the right of Heineke in a shotgun set. He takes the snap. He's back to throw. He's under pressure. Ball gets knocked away, and it's going to be ruled a fumble, and the ball is loose on the ground and recovered by the Giants at the 20-yard line. It's going as a sack and a forced fumble, and they unpile at the 20, but the Giants force a turnover.
You know what it is? We got it. I'm an animal. He's so crazy. If you watch it, he was 5 feet from him and just tipped his arm in there. Like, oh, God, dude. I just threw literally, I just threw my arm in there. I just threw my arm in there. When you do a great pass rusher, you got to feel for that. Man, I just threw my arm in there. Ball out.
Hodgins out to the left with James. Jones calls signals, takes the snap. Play fake, he's back to throw. He looks left, throws it for the touchdown. Isaiah Hodgins.
Oh, it's just like we talked about. Hey, patience. Out in 2. Patience.
Just keep on pounding. Next play mentality, okay? Great answer right there on a sudden change. That's good team football.
Heineke in a shotgun set. Giants by 7. Heineke back to throw. Has time, sidearms it over the middle. Completes it to Dotson. Runs out of a tackle at the 15. Spins up another. Into the end zone for a touchdown. 28 yards to Dotson. So we're going to go to overtime. The Giants are going to get the ball first. Play clock down to 3. Jones takes the shotgun snap. Steps up. He's under pressure. Jones is going to get sacked back at the 35-yard line. McLaurin split out to the right. Heineke takes the snap. Looking right. Hit by Thibodeau and sacked. Back at the 1-yard line.
Enter the closer.
Kayvon Thibodeau with his 2nd sack of the season. And how did Heineke not fumble it? And now you send out Graham Gano to try a really long field goal. Kicking to this end of the stadium, the wind is a little trickier. It'll be a 58-yarder from the right hash to win the game in overtime. Snap, spot, kick on its way, end over end, and it is short. And this game is ended
This is the end of overtime.
in a tie.
Neither team scored, therefore the game is reported as a tie.
Carl, it ended in a tie. I thought the Giants had the upper hand in that game. Mm-hmm. There were opportunities that if they present themselves on Sunday night, they have to take advantage of.
Sure, and they should not leave it to chance. But it's a cliffhanger. It's literally the season finale in terms of playoff hopefuls. So this is a game that should inspire a lot of motivation and the incentive to do everything as best you can.
We're going to find out on Sunday Night Football, the Giants and Washington. We'll take a timeout when we come back head-to-head here on the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop and Shop. Welcome back to the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop and Shop. Time for this week's edition of Head to Head with Paul Dottino and Sean O'Hara.
Okay, so let's go head to head for the Giants game against the Washington Commanders. Sean, up first.
Here we go. We're going with the Hogs.
Nick Gates against Jonathan Allen. Now, you recall Nick Gates missed almost a year and a half after 7 surgeries on his broken leg. It's been a great comeback now that he's back in the starting lineup for New York. Allen has been incredible. Top 5 amongst NFL defensive tackles in sacks, in tackles for a loss, and in quarterback hits. The Giants know that he can be a game wrecker.
Allen's I think he's one of their better defensive players on the team just in general. But he likes to get in your body. He likes to play. He's a big, strong cat, likes to, get in your body and play like that. And I think Payne is more of like a finesse, more of like a get your feet moving and go the other way type of dude.
No doubt Nick Gates has been an inspirational story, not just for his teammates, but for other players coming back from injury, Paul. As you mentioned, a horrific injury he suffered actually against the Washington Commanders last year, making his 3rd start at left guard, if he does indeed start there. And I think the first thing that jumps out to me is Nick Gates played really well against Jonathan Allen 2 weeks ago. That week 13 matchup, he did a great job, didn't give up a sack, didn't give up a quarterback hit. He basically pitched a shutout statistically against Jonathan Allen. He did give up a couple of pressures. He got beat to the outside a little bit. Some of that I attribute to just being back out there at guard. It's a little bit more space, a little different animal than playing at center. But this matchup, obviously in the passing game, Jonathan Allen, you could see what he's done already this season, 7.5 sacks. So he's got a great ability to rush on the outside. He's got a couple nice inside moves as well. But, Paul, where I really see this matchup being a big factor is in the run game. If you want to run the football, and the Giants have struggled lately to do this, but you've got to have a great control over the defensive tackles. So it's both Deron Payne on the other side and Jonathan Allen. Nick Gates has to do a good job when they want to run these outside zones of getting outside leverage and allowing the running back to press the hole. Saquon Barkley just had 3.5 yards per carry. The last time they played him in Week 13, they've got to do better at those outside perimeter zone runs, and it starts up front with Nick Gates.
There's also a chance that Ben Bredesen could get some snaps at guard this week as well. Dexter Lawrence against Andrew Norwell is our next head-to-head matchup. Now, when you look at Dexter Lawrence this season, well, he's just been incredible. He is 8th in the National Football League in quarterback hits. He already has a career-high 6 sacks. Norwell, former Pro Bowl player. In the last 8 games, he hasn't allowed a sack, and he's only been penalized once, Sean. That was for a hold. The Giants know they need to get through that brick wall.
I think, he's just a big guy playing guard. So he does well as taking up both gaps. He makes himself big and he plays strong. So, it's good for him. It's been working for him.
Now, at the same time, your size and power can be to your advantage. Even though he's a big guy, you can also use that, no?
No, for sure. I mean, I'm always going to find a way to get the upper hand. There's that staying active, that getting my hands on them first, that's knocking them back, is whatever I can do to be successful.
Dexter Lawrence has been playing with power and really a lot of quickness and agility that you don't expect from a big man. But this matchup right here, him against Andrew Norwell, he has so much more power than Andrew Norwell. And Andrew Norwell has been stout for Washington. He's been a consistent player out there. I don't know if he's missed a snap all season long. You see just 4 sacks allowed on the season. And you already mentioned the sacks for Dexter Lawrence. I'm going to point out the quarterback hits because sacks are great and everybody loves that stat. Quarterback hits, those pressures are what lead to turnovers, and those can impact plays as well. So for Dexter, it's all about getting that pressure on the quarterback. He had a sack in Week 13 against Washington, but he also had 3 hurries. Now, Paul, I know we've got him matched up against Andrew Norwell, but Dexter actually played a lot over the center. Right. Washington doesn't have their starting center, Tyler Larson. He actually got hurt in our game. Nick Martin filled in at center, who's a little bit of a lighter center. So I expect to see Dexter playing over Andrew Norwell as well as the center. And I think Dexter, look, we know how big he is. We know how he can occupy space in the run game. But in in this game, this is a playoff game for the Giants. They need big-time plays. They need sacks. They need quarterback pressures, batted balls. We need turnovers. It's got to be the double negative, the sack, forced fumble. That's a lot of pressure to put on Big Dexter Lawrence, but I think he'll welcome that challenge. Hopefully he'll welcome back Leonard Williams on the other side, which will help him out too.
Well, we know one thing. The Commanders will try to run the ball. They've been doing it all year, and Brian Robinson had 21 carries for 96 yards against the Giants just a couple of weeks ago. That'll do it for head-to-head this week. Now back to Bob.
Carl, the guys were talking about Dexter Lawrence, and he's had an unbelievable season. He had a great game 2 games ago against Washington. He's really one of the keys to this Giants defense, isn't he?
Well, he is. He's so disruptive. But when he gets the attention, it's very important for the other guys to know what their fits are in the scheme, meaning the other 2 down linemen and the linebackers. Because if he's getting 2 other guys are being singled, and they've got to know where their fits are in the scheme so that he can come off and become one-on-one again.
Yeah, and you cannot allow Washington to get their ground game going because it creates balance, just like the Giants need balance as well. We're going to take a timeout. When we come back, Madeline Burke will join us with Over Under here on the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop & Shop. Welcome back to the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop & Shop. Sunday Night Football, the Giants and Washington. It's time for this week's edition of Over Under as we send it over to Madeline Burke.
All right, it's time for some Week 15 game time, a little over-under. Madeline Burke, Sean O'Hara, and Amani Toomer. Guys, you know the rules. I'll throw it out there, and you tell me over or under. Sean, I'm going to start with you.
All right.
Giants, Washington, Sunday Night Football, over under 71 rushing yards for Daniel Jones.
I love Sunday Night Football. I love prime time. Give me over. You know, and I want Daniel Jones to turn his hat around. All right, Lincoln Hawk style. I want him to go over the top. All right, 71 yards. He had that same amount, as you said, 2 weeks ago. 12 carries. Look, you don't leave anything left on the play sheet. Like every single quarterback design run, every gadget you have with your quarterback, you've got to have it. Don't leave anything left in the tank. If you're the play caller, Mike Kafka, or if you're Daniel Jones, I'll take the over.
So you're saying there is no tomorrow, Sean?
There is no tomorrow.
There is no tomorrow. I'm with you. He's going to have, and everybody on this team is going to have their best games. This can't be a one-person thing. This is for the playoffs. This is to make sure that this season doesn't all go to waste. There's a lot riding on this. Daniel Jones knows it. We know it. And it is imperative that everybody comes and plays their best game. I'm going to say he's going to over.
I'm going to agree with you. Let's go over across the board. We've seen what Daniel Jones can do with his legs, but we've also seen what a threat to the run game when Daniel Jones gets it going, how that elevates the run game as a whole. Let's take the over on 71 rushing yards for DJ. All right, Amani, over under 5.5 combined touchdowns between the Giants and Commanders.
It's that tricky half.
I know.
Matt, I don't know. It's that half. Well, I'm going to go over. I think both of these teams are due to have a little breakout. The Giants' offense has been a little stagnant even though they scored 20-some points, but a lot of it in garbage time. I feel that this is it. This is the game that's going to have to be the statement of the season. This season's going to turn either for the better or for the worse based on this game, because this is a winnable game. This is the game that we have to win, that the Giants have to win to cement this season.
Yeah, both teams in the same position. This is a divisional game, and those are always tougher to get touchdowns by. But I'm going to take the over on this one as well. Both teams, with 20 points in the tie, I think everybody's looking at that game. This was to be continued, as we talked about. I think the Giants have a chance to start fast. All right, they sleptwalked through the first game against Washington and even last week against Philly. This is a chance to have a team that's got maybe a little too much rest. It's that rest versus rust factor.
Right.
So if the Giants can jump out early, I think it helps. I'll take the over on 5.5 touchdowns.
I'm going to go ahead and agree with the over as well. Hopefully we get a little rust rather than the rest from the Commanders off the bye to begin with. And again, if the Giants can get it going, start fast, get in that end zone in the first quarter, this will bode well for the New York Football Giants. All right, Sean, over under 9.5 wins for the Giants to clinch the playoffs.
I think 9 gets us in because of the tie. I think the tie now eliminates that extra loss. So you can get in with 9. So I'll take the under, but we would need a lot of help. Look, make it easy on all of us. Get 10, and then we don't even have to have this conversation.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the under. I think 9 will get us in. Will get the Giants in, just because of the fact that a lot of these teams are playing each other. A lot of division games are coming down the stretch. There's going to be a lot of competitive football. And I just feel like the Giants have as good a chance as any, especially with the Philadelphia Eagles clinching so early. That's going to give us an extra opportunity to clinch it in the last game of the season.
I'm going to go ahead and take the under as well, with the caveat that one of those 9 wins has to be a division game, because the Giants haven't gotten that yet, and they need to win at least once in the division to make this postseason run. But yeah, 9 wins, I think, gets the job done. All right, Amani, over under 135 total rushing yards for the Washington Commanders.
I think the Commanders have a really diverse running game with Samuels and Robinson. Both of those guys are dynamic with the ball, and it's going to be a tough task for us to slow them down. And I feel like I don't think we're going to do it, because our run stopping of the last couple of weeks hasn't been up to par like we were early on in the season.
Yeah, we really struggled against Philly last week, and Miles Sanders had a monster day. So I think when you see that and the defense is motivated by that, I think they're going to clamp it down. So I'll take the under on this. Brian Robinson's only had 100-yard rushing game all season long. I think that if Leonard Williams can come back, that really will fortify that front and hopefully contain that running game that hurt us against Philadelphia last week.
Yeah, I think the run stopping is a priority, but considering the last time these two teams played, Brian Robinson alone had 96 yards on the ground. Not quite that 100, but flirted with it. I'm going to take the over on this one, especially if we're going to see over 5.5 touchdowns in this game. It's going to be a lot of back and forth in this one, but you know what? Love the fireworks on Sunday Night Football. We will see how this one plays out. Giants Commanders Sunday night, 8:20 Eastern. That's a wrap for Over Under. Back to you guys, Bob and Carl.
Carl, a couple of years ago, Saquon Barkley had his career high in a game at Washington, 189 yards. And this game does come down to the running game, doesn't it, for both of these teams? The Giants can't let Washington run it as they did the last time.
It does. I think because both teams rely on balance to really get their offense and keep it on track and to be able to do the things that they want to do in the passing game. So it's imperative that the Giants run the ball. That doesn't mean all Saquon Barkley. It means Saquon and company.
Right, yeah, whether it's wide receivers getting in the running game, the quarterback getting in the running game, or the other running backs on the roster. It's got to be a team effort. It can't just be one guy. We're going to break it down even further when we come back on the program. Carl goes to the coach's tape with strategy here on the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop and Shop. Welcome back to the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop and Shop. Sunday Night Football, Giants in Washington. Second meeting in 3 weeks. Time for strategy with Carl Banks. And Carl, we're going to take a look at Taylor Heineke. Since he's come into the lineup, he gets it done for Washington. That's the bottom line.
Because he's the master of improvisation. So if you're any of the guys here, and even these guys, when you have a coverage responsibility, it is truly a responsibility. Don't give it up until you hear the whistle blow, because what Heineke does with this football is he'll buy time, and his receivers' routes are never the same route. So when you're in coverage, you've got to be in tight coverage, because here you have the corner fearing that McCurlin's going to go by him, and he gives up too much cushion. You got a safety who's feeling like he's got to get over, gives up too much cushion, and so they meet here, but McCurlin catches the ball right there. So you've got to have tight coverage, and you can't be afraid. Yes, he's a great route runner, but whatever the coverage calls for, do your job. Now, here's another case. They're 4th and 4. Coverage responsibility is all you have. They got the right play called up. It's just a matter of now containing the quarterback, number one, but not losing your coverage responsibility. Now, I'm going to go through this halfway through.
And the Giants did a lot of things right on this play.
A lot of things right. And I'm going to, as we progress through this, I'm going to show you. Freeze. This guy is covered. This guy is covered. This guy is covered. This guy has eyes on. This guy has eyes on. So this play, as it starts, is all covered. Now, quarterback breaks contained. Still covered, still covered, still covered, and doubled. Still covered. This guy becomes a spectator.
Mm-hmm.
The guy he's covering is behind him. So there's no way he can see what happens. You're a spectator who cannot impact the play of a quarterback that's basically 23 yards away from you. So guess what happens? His guy uncovers, and it's a first down.
Another thing that they do, Terry McLaurin is obviously a big play threat, and there are times where Heineke is just saying, go get the ball.
Yeah, and this is one of those cases here. Taylor Heinicke's in the pocket, he's moving around, doesn't see much. He buys time and just throws it up. But here's the beautiful part about this connection. I just want you to watch as the route finishes, right? This guy right here makes himself available to his quarterback. And if you're in coverage, you're not a spectator, you're a coverage guy. And what happens? He stops. McCurlin turns up, quarterback throws the ball.
Right, and the safety's preoccupied with the guy in the middle of the field, so he can't even turn around to help or chase the ball. Now, one of the other things that the Giants had to deal with when they played Washington the first time is the outstanding defense that Washington has and the pressure from the two interior guys.
Yeah, and so what the Giants can expect week after week is pressure right here. These guys right here, they're going to see as maximum of pressure as possible, and they're going to put their best players on the Giants' interior line. Now, you have a lineman here who came into the game with back spasms. It took a while for him to loosen up, and this is one of the first plays of the game, and you can see he just went right by, pressure up the middle.
Yeah, Deron Payne had a big game. Jonathan Allen had a big game, and it just so happens that two of their best defensive players, that's their natural position. So it's not even like they're looping somebody in there.
And speaking of looping, here's again, now Washington doesn't do a lot of blitzing, but they will bring some exotic looks. Now you've got your down four guys here, and what they're going to do is create space for the corner to come and another corner to come. So you got to get it blocked up. The Giants have enough players. Here, should be picked up here. Saquon Barkley's got his guy. These guys are blocked up, right? But here's where you have to be available to your quarterback. You got one defender who's really covering two guys here. And people will look at this and say, well, he's just got to let the ball go. Well, here's what happens when I stop it right here.
He's not looking.
This guy is in the window. So you've got to clear the window and be available for your quarterback, but he may have a shot, Bob, but you got the cornerback that's blitzing here. Andrew Thomas comes off, does not get enough, and the cornerback did just enough to get Daniel Jones off his spot, and there's nowhere to go after that.
That's Strategy with Carl Banks. It's brought to you by PSE&G, providing safe, reliable energy now and in the future. When we come back on the program, Paul Dottino, Amani Toomer, Above the Numbers here on the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop & Shop. Welcome back to the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop & Shop. Huge game Sunday Night Football, the Giants in Washington. It's time for this week's edition of Above the Numbers.
So let's go above the numbers for Sunday Night Football as the Giants take on the Washington Commanders. Amani, who do we have first?
We have Jalen Smith. He's a pleasant surprise this year. He's been kind of a journeyman, been around the league a little bit, but now has really found a home with opportunity. He's taken advantage of it. Last 3 games, he's had 24 tackles, but the only problem with his 24 tackles is he only had 5 against Washington 2 weeks ago. He's going to have a much better game to stop that run game, that downhill run game that really gave us problems. But I have a feeling this guy's going to come through and really put a stamp on this game like he has pretty much this entire season.
Well, you know, Amani, he says that he loves to play against the NFC East. In fact, last weekend against Philadelphia, he tied a season high with 7 solo tackles in the game. Now, one of the things that I know he'd like to do better, only 2 tackles for a loss this year, and against some of those powerful Commanders runs, you know he'd like to get him behind the line of scrimmage. The other thing is he doesn't have any forced fumbles. You really want to get some takeaways against this Commanders offense. Maybe Smith can jar the ball free this week. Okay, Amani, now my guy to go above the numbers is safety Jason Pinnock. Now, over the last 3 games, he has 21 tackles. But the thing is, he doesn't have any interceptions. This is only his second pro season. He's only had 4 NFL starts. Now, when he was at Pitt in 3.5 years with the Panthers, he had 6 interceptions in college. So it would be helpful if he could try to get one this week. The Giants as a team with only 4 picks on the season, tied for second fewest in the National Football League. And by the way, Taylor Heinicke, he's thrown picks in 5 of his 7 starts so far this year.
Absolutely. Give our offense the short side of the field. We need some interceptions this weekend to give our chance a better chance.
Okay, so who do we have below the numbers?
Chase Young, defensive end. He hasn't really played much this year. Hasn't played at all this year, in fact, because of injury. He's coming off a knee. This is going to be his first opportunity to get on the field. He could have played against us last time, but he was sick. This time he's going to be healthy. Oof, we're going to see how many. We're going to have to figure out a way to slow him down because he can be an absolute game wrecker.
Yeah, Young suffered an ACL injury back in November 14th of last year. This will be his first game back, as you said, Amani. In 24 career NFL games, he has 9 sacks. So he can be a game wrecker, at least on occasion. Not so much, though, against the Giants. 3 career games against Big Blue, only 7 combined tackles and 1 sack. And by the way, when he is in the game, he usually lines up on the left side of the defense, which would mean Evan Neal would draw that assignment in most cases. That'll do it for Above the Numbers this week. Now back to Bob.
Carl, obviously there's a lot of different components to this game. Chase Young is expected to make his season debut. He's coming off injury. You got the 2 talented defensive tackles as well. And then you got Sweat on the outside. The Giants can't let Chase Young have a party on his first game back.
Well, they can't let any of those talented front 4 have a party in this game. And here's the thing, this group is as talented as they come. The Giants have faced big, fast, strong defensive fronts the last 3 weeks. They've got to solidify some things, so it's not a matter so much of what the opponent is doing as it is what they have to be better at.
And the Giants are going to have some opportunities that we saw in the first game, making plays down the field if the protection can hold up. Slayton had a big game, and he had some opportunities late as well. Well, this is an important game for the Giants and Washington, which kind of reminds us of 1986 when the teams met 3 times during that Super Bowl season. We'll look back at the 1986 Giants-Washington rivalry when we return to the Coach Daboll Show presented by Stop & Shop.
You know, it's December. We only got a couple left. You know, there is no more time for makeup. You know, you don't have any plays to get back.
I think all of these games going down the stretch are going to be big for us. You know, it's a lot. It makes it more fun that way, though. You know.
He takes the snap. He's back. Gets avoids Ojulari, throws it to his right, hits McLaurin, runs out of a tackle to the 5 and in for the touchdown.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Sunday night football. Like I said, divisional game in December, so it'll be a fun atmosphere.
What helped us win those first 7 games is what's going to help us continue to win. So we just got to get back to that and get back to playing and showing our swagger, showing our personality.
Sets, throws a deep rainbow ball down the field for Slayton, who makes the catch in traffic and gets tackled at the 26-yard line. Jones threw it up, and Slayton makes another big play.
Being able to meet at that stage and lock those gates is going to be real fun.
We're back here on the Coach Daboll Show presented by Stop & Shop. Giants players fired up for the game on Sunday against Washington, which got us to thinking about being fired up for a Washington game. In 1986, the Giants and Washington were 2 of the best teams in the National Football League. They met 3 times during that season, with the Giants doing the unthinkable and winning all 3. Here's a look back at those 3 matchups in 1986. The Giants' rivalry with Washington is one of the oldest in the NFL, dating back over 90 years, and there have been so many classic moments along the way. But in the 1980s, the matchup would become one of the most heated battles in all of football. Both squads were led by legendary coaches. Joe Gibbs was the head man in Washington, and the Big Tuna, Bill Parcells, was at the helm for New York. During their tenures, the 2 teams combined to win 7 NFC East Division titles and 5 Super Bowl championships.
That was our fiercest rival, and that was the team that knew us best, and we knew them best. It was going to be physical, and it was going to be a battle.
But it's the 1986 season that Giants fans remember as being the high watermark in this intense rivalry, with the 2 teams playing 3 times in 1 year. In the first meeting at Giants Stadium, Phil Simms led a balanced attack.
Simms, touchdown to Bobby Johnson.
Joe Morris led the way with over 180 yards of rushing and 2 touchdowns as Big Blue secured the victory.
And this is Joe Morris. Morris is gone.
We respected them the most, they respected us the most, and we loved playing against them.
But with the division title at stake in Week 14, the Giants traveled south into hostile territory and the not-so-friendly confines of RFK Stadium for another NFC East showdown.
The standings in the NFC's Eastern Division. The Giants both at 11-2. This amounts to a championship game because in all likelihood, whoever wins today will win the Eastern Championship.
This is my favorite spot in the NFL, playing in Washington, because we knew we were getting ready to walk in that dugout and all those fans would be hanging over, and they were awesome. And one day I'm walking down that dugout, Parcells looked at me and goes, "You ready?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm ready, Coach." And he goes, "You know, Sims, they hate us so much here, they like us." I went, "Gotcha." Made sense to me.
And Sims would certainly find his comfort zone on the road, throwing 3 touchdowns on the day.
Here's Sims. Bavaro touchdown.
You just take that big tight end and just put him right down there in that short post.
The Giants lead 7-0.
Playing in our nation's capital also held a special significance for Virginia native Lawrence Taylor, who grew up the son of a die-hard Washington fan.
Lawrence Taylor on a blitz. Ball is loose.
I tell you, here's a guy that can dominate a game. When he's ready to play, look out.
LT would unleash his most dominating performance of the season, single-handedly destroying Washington's offense, sacking Jay Schrader 3 times on the day.
That game was a microcosm of that 86 team. We imposed our will. Our defense was ferocious. And even for me personally, catching a touchdown against Darryl Green to ice the game, late in the game, was a great deal.
Sims is back at the 25, looking for a target. He's going end zone. Touchdown! What a catch by Bill McConkey in the back corner. Double team.
The winner of that game was going to win the division and get home field advantage for the NFC throughout the playoffs. That's how important that game was.
One Giant step to Pasadena.
And to me, this assures him of the division title.
From RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C., where the final score was the Giants 24-14.
I got a funny feeling that we're going to meet them somewhere down the road again before the 86 season's over. I just thought we played pretty well today, and I'm proud of my guys.
In the 1986 NFC Championship game, with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line, New York would battle Washington for the 3rd time that season. And with 40-mile-per-hour winds gusting through Giant Stadium, Bill Parcells would make a wise move, deciding to take the wind to start the game.
We'll take the wind!
And of course, the elements were so much a factor that day and wound up being a tremendous advantage for us. Our ability to do things in the elements that Washington just couldn't do. We drove the ball into a 35 or 40 mile an hour wind for a touchdown.
Sims has got a man open, and it's Lionel Manuel, touchdown Giants.
With their aerial attack grounded by the ferocious winds, Washington had to rely on their running game, which was as miserable as the weather.
4th and inches. The Redskins not on the scoreboard yet. Handoff is to Rodgers, and I don't think he got it.
Big plays by that Giant defense.
The Big Blue defense held Washington to 40 yards rushing, while Joe Morris racked up 89 yards and scored the game's final touchdown.
Morris is going to score.
This is it. This is what you go for. The championship game, the Super Bowl. Everyone wants to be there. When you win the championship, you know you're going to the Super Bowl. It's the greatest feeling in sports.
Carl, that first meeting at Giant Stadium, Joe Morris has a massive game. You guys jumped out to a lead. They came back, but they had gone into that game with a 1-game lead over you guys. How important was it to establish home field and hey, the New York Giants ain't going anywhere?
The game between these two teams were always lunch pail games. Those were, respected opponents, but it was, you knew you had to bring your hard hat to that game more so than any other, because during that period, Super Bowls were coming through the NFC East, so you had to be that guy.
Then the second meeting, you go down to Washington and basically salt away the division. How cool was it to go down there and beat that team in their own building?
I got to tell you, there was no greater experience then just watching that crowd at RFK just shut down, because when they got it going, that place literally bounced up and down. Like it was the bleachers, I don't know what they had, but they were just bouncing. They're screaming. So to go there and to beat them and walk out of RFK with the victory was so sweet.
So now you had them at Giants Stadium for the NFC Championship game. Did you feel even more pressure? Because it's hard to beat a team 3 times in 1 year.
You know, that was so interesting because at that point, I think it had been decades since a team defeated someone 3 times in the same year. And that's all you heard. You cut the TV on, the Giants are not favorite. It's impossible to beat a team 3 times in a row. And we just never paid attention to it.
And then you beat them 17-0 en route to winning Super Bowl 21. So it's kind of a cool backdrop to what's going to happen on Sunday night in Landover, Maryland, when the Giants take on Washington. This week's game is presented by Teradata, an official data analytics platform, partner of the New York Giants. Hey, make sure after the game you check out Giants Postgame Live, presented by NFL All Day, for all the reaction from the Giants and Washington. So for Carl Banks, Coach Daboll, and our entire crew, I'm Bob Papa. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop & Shop.